Kuminga has no desire to remain a member of the Golden State Warriors. His relationship with head coach Steve Kerr is fractured beyond repair. He's felt that he hasn't had any organizational support. There are other rival teams out there that believe that the Warriors might just hold on to Kuminga and wait till the summer to offload.
You know, in terms of demands, when you make a demand, there needs to be demand.
There's not a lot of guys that can not play for over a month and go and just get you a quick 20 ball.
No.
But what Dunleavy's saying is you can make a demand all you want, but there has to be demand that makes sense for us.
We're not trying to figure out what he meant. We're going to say,
when did guys start getting penalized for wanting to be great? I just don't understand. I don't feel like no player could get in Steph one. He's that great. Like, you could drop Steph anywhere in America, LA Fitness, the YMCA, wherever. He's going to get bucked. He can fit in with anybody. It's not stopping the flow of Steph.
Mainstream media has been absolutely shredding Steve Kerr on his handling of Jonathan Kuminga following the Warriors' young player's request for a trade. When the Warriors traded for Jimmy Butler in February of 2025, the biggest concerns were the age and health factor. Particularly on this channel, we noted that if the Warriors traded Jonathan Kuminga along with Andrew Wiggins for Jimmy Butler, it would be a huge loss for the Warriors. Fortunately for the team, the situation in Miami had deteriorated so badly, Butler's value fell just far enough for the Warriors to swing a trade without involving Jonathan Kuminga. This was the best possible outcome for the Warriors at the time. Jimmy's arrival was the catalyst for a Warriors run that sent the Warriors to the playoffs in light of JK's ankle injury that didn't see him return to the floor for over 2 months. The prospect of his return putting the Warriors over the top as a contender was tantalizing. Unfortunately, for political reasons or other, this never materialized. With injuries to both Butler and Curry, the Warriors struggled beyond the first round. The foreshadowing was clear. Over-reliance on a now even older Butler and Stephen Curry to carry the team through the regular season to follow up with physically stronger, lengthier, and more athletic players was not going to be a winning formula. Steve Kerr committed to having Jonathan Kuminga in a more permanent role for the upcoming season, an idea that not only made sense, but likely played a role in Kuminga's return on a 1-year guaranteed deal.
If JK comes back, we will for sure spend the early part of the season playing him with Jimmy, Draymond, Steph. I mean, to me, that would be a no-brainer.
After only a few games, that commitment soured as Kerr removed JK out of the rotation entirely. After 16 straight DNPs for JK, Jimmy Butler suffered a devastating ACL injury which ended his season and possibly slamming the window shut on the Warriors' chance for a championship. The Warriors are now at a crossroads with all sorts of trade rumors, one of which would involve going back to the table with the Miami Heat to reacquire the 30-year-old Andrew Wiggins in exchange for 20-year-old Jonathan Kuminga. Check ball. After spending 4 weeks in the storm-ravaged island of Jamaica post-Melissa, I've been able to document and will be sharing with you how storm survivors are coping in the aftermath, and will also be including how your donations were put to use to help others struggling at the moment. I'll be curating a 30 to 45 minute documentary about what I experienced as well as the experiences of 3 families or individuals before, during, and after the hurricane. I will also be providing a method to help these 3 in their recovery if you resonate with their stories. The current GoFundMe is still up and you can click the link in the description to continue helping as we haven't yet raised enough to fully cover the costs of rebuilding. A lot of the costs came from my own pockets, but just to be sure, I appreciate every single donation you guys have made so far. Without them, there would still be no roof on my aunt's house. Thank you again, and keep an eye out for the documentary, which should be posted within the next week or so. The Golden State Warriors season is currently in freefall.
Now Steph is going to finish the last part of his career on a mediocre team, and that's the thing that's disheartening about it.
At around this time last season, the team was struggling to maintain a .500 record while facing injuries to Steph Curry. With Jonathan Kuminga next to Andrew Wiggins, the team was no better or worse than any average team in the league. Curry returned and Jonathan Kuminga suffered an ankle injury, and things just didn't seem to be getting better. As we approached the trade deadline, Steph Curry began his best stretch of the season. A couple games later, the Warriors sent Wiggins to the Heat and acquired Butler. The Warriors never looked back the rest of the season, as they immediately cultured a winning record for the remainder of the year. While most of the games were against weaker competition, Jimmy's style of play and veteran leadership established a high floor for the Warriors. All rested with Steve Kerr in hopes that he'd find a way to integrate the Warriors' young forward into the lineup to further elevate the team. This unfortunately never happened, as JK was ostracized, collecting DNPs towards the end of the season up until injuries to both the Warriors' superstars. The overuse of the team's veterans was quite obvious, and with Kerr's promise to lean on JK in the upcoming season, it was expected that with the younger players carrying the load, it could preserve the team's veterans over the course of the grueling 82-game season. When the new season started, the buzzword was buy-in. It seemed that all Steve Kerr was asking for was buy-in from Jonathan to play within his system.
Golden State is a system. They have their system. They've been had their system. This is what's going to happen in this system. And if you're going to buy into this system, then you're going to play.
After 12 games through the first 21 days of the season, with 6 of the 12 being back-to-backs, the Warriors had a .500 record. Even Steve Kerr at the time complained about the schedule.
Back-to-back games in Florida, then Miami. Steve, what's the plan for your older roster? Have you already sketched out who plays when and who sits?
We've been discussing it the last couple of days, and it's been the toughest early schedule I've ever been a part of in my entire NBA life.
After Game 13, Kuminga was taken out of the starting lineup and was then out of the rotation altogether for what would have been his 14th game. The Warriors played the next 7 games without Kuminga, shuffling between DNPs and a minor injury. The Warriors went 3-4 during that period. The schedule then lightened up, and except for one game, the Warriors decided Kuminga should stay on the bench instead of being in the rotation. That one game he played followed an email that went public as Joe Lacob responded to a fan's inquiry lamenting the Warriors' struggles. It read, "Dear Joe, please do something about this team. What's Steph need to do every night to win? Drop 50 points? The team is in need of a real second option. Jimmy's tools are being underutilized because he's playing as a power forward due to the small position players. We have no true center. I am so frustrated. Thanks, Justin." Joe Lacob responded to the email saying, "You can't be as frustrated as me. I'm working on it. It's complicated. Style of play, coaches' desires regarding players, league trends. Jimmy is not the problem. Joe." While nothing revealed in Joe's response was particularly shocking, a point he made was quite clear. That particular comment, coach's desires regarding players, is pretty telling. It's no secret that Steve Kerr is partial to a certain type of player. It is also well known that Jonathan Kuminga is not that type of player. What the front office is currently struggling with, however, is that Steve Kerr's system might not be it either. That's not to say it wasn't the most revolutionary at one point in time. Utilizing who was considered an undersized shooting guard back when he was just an NBA draft prospect, alongside a tweener such as Draymond Green, was a concept almost no coach would consider feasible when it came to having a winning formula. Yet somehow, it worked. Steve Kerr rocketed to the top of the podium his first year as head coach, nabbing the Head Coach of the Year honors. He went on to win 3 more championships with Curry, Green, and Klay Thompson over the next 7 years, forging a dynasty that brought the franchise from poverty to the most valuable in the association. Combined with his 5 rings as a player, one alongside the Chicago Bulls and Spurs dynasties, his resume spoke for itself. His accomplishments aren't something you take for granted. Ever since the last championship in 2022, however, something changed.
And they're going to do just that. This is the biggest win they've had in 17 years. I mean, to take out the Warriors.
The Warriors have not only failed to win, they failed to even be competitive, with Steve Kerr even going on record saying,
I just don't want anybody to think like that we're all disillusioned and we're thinking like, hey, we should be competing for titles year in and year out with San Antonio and Oklahoma City the next few years. That's not realistic.
While there's certainly enough blame to go around as to why the Warriors haven't been winning, from the punch in 2022 to drafting to failing to make trades, through all the smoke, however, there is one that stands above all, and that is the development and utilization of the Warriors' 2021 7th overall pick, Jonathan Kuminga. Wherever you think JK's potential lies, there is a universal agreement that the Warriors have failed to develop any of the players they've drafted. The one player that came close was Jordan Poole, who was likely Steph Curry's greatest understudy. With Poole's departure, the Warriors struggled to find a replacement, whether through the draft or trade, and have seemingly put all hopes in Brandon Podziemski. Great kid who believes in himself, but just as you have development coaches who struggle to turn young players into champions, you have role players unable to bridge that gap into stardom. Steve's focus on finding players that fit his system led to the installation of an endless stream of specialized players who excel at one thing and perform poorly in others. What makes this worse is that without a consistent shooter such as pre-injury Clay, a player you can't help off of, it becomes much less effective. Even with post-injury Clay, Steph Curry still had to carry that 2022 Warriors team. 3 years later, and we have a declining Draymond Green who can't seem to go a single fourth quarter without dropping a few dimes to the opposition. Not only that, his ability to give consistent effort when there isn't a particular matchup is becoming a consistent and predictable problem for the Golden State Warriors. Kerr's system requires that the team function around two dysfunctional positions: the two-guard, formerly Clay, and the offense-driving power forward position that Draymond has filled for the past 11 years. The team attempted to cover it up with the Jimmy Butler acquisition, and while that worked to an extent, even giving the Warriors a boost to finish out the season, the motion offense finds itself with even more problems than solutions. With Jimmy, they had a chance if they acquired another piece. Without Jimmy, the team is likely to be floundering. This has left the team without options. Any trade could be a death sentence. They will not be trading Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr is at least finishing out his last year. This is where they have no choice but to rely on Jonathan Kuminga, a player that has been said on numerous occasions to not fit into Steve Kerr's system. The problem, however, is that this system, with or without Jonathan Kuminga, still has the same weaknesses. Without JK, the scoring load heavily concentrated on Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and a greenlit Brandon Podziemski, which didn't leave much room for Kuminga to find his rhythm offensively. What made matters worse was the absence of any sort of offensive capability from Draymond Green. Without Butler, there's a gaping hole for offense and playmaking if we're replicating what this team was without Jimmy. But like I said, even that team had its weaknesses. So what does this mean for the Warriors going forward with Jonathan Kuminga now back in the rotation with an injured Jimmy Butler? To make things more or less complicated, they've also announced that they will not be treating Jimmy Butler's contract. Then this happened. In just his second game back into the rotation, during a second quarter fast break, Jonathan Kuminga hyperextended his left knee, ending a night that seemed promising for the young player's return. In just 9 minutes, he was already up to 10 points, 2 assists, and 2 steals. But what was most notable about the night prior to his injury was the game's trend when JK was on the court versus when he was off the court. When Kuminga first entered the game at the 5:04 mark for GP2, the Warriors were down 17-11. His impact was immediate. JK gets an and-one bucket, followed by another and-one bucket, and puts the Warriors up 2, 19-17. The Warriors end the quarter up 3 before JK subs out to start the second quarter. The Mavs stage a comeback.
Missed it. Slapped down. The follow jam. Payton, extra heel. Can't hit the three. And it's grabbed by Thompson. Ahead. Christie turns. It's blocked by Green. Nearly over to Powell. Flag. Left-handed pass to the Thompson three.
Retaking the lead and putting the Mavs up by 5, 36-31, before Kerr subs Jonathan Kuminga in for Buddy Hield at the 8:16 mark. The Warriors tied the game at 37 apiece in the next 2 minutes on a dunk from JK. The Warriors took the lead as he continued to make his presence felt, putting them up by 6. He was then fouled on a fast break that would see him go to the locker room and not return for the rest of the night. The Warriors went on to lose against the Mavericks 123-115 without Jonathan Kuminga, who ended the night with a plus 18 in just 9 minutes. Following his departure from the game, an MRI uncovered a bone bruise due to the hyperextension that forced him to miss the end of the game. An evaluation in the coming days will determine when and whether he returns to the floor for the Warriors, but that could change. After just 2 games back, showcasing flashes of brilliance, scoring 30 points in 30 minutes, Jonathan Kuminga might still end up getting traded by the deadline. The front office has said if they don't get a meaningful offer that they're willing to hold on to him despite his trade request. The Warriors are in a very precarious position as they are unable to win relying on the older squad who will be even older and more injured next year, with Jimmy likely being out for a full year at least, and no team seems to be willing to give the Warriors an offer that'll help Steve Kerr's roster compete this season. The early prognosis is that JK won't be out for very long. With that in mind, here are the options remaining for the Warriors on the table. Firstly, they could remain as they are with no trade moves and give their best shot to a lineup that features both Curry and Kuminga as their number 1 and number 2 options. This sink or swim method will either boost JK's value or make a more definitive marker that allows them to either pick up his second year and trade him or not renew his contract. If he plays well enough, beyond the $25 million that remains on his contract after this year, moving him becomes much easier. Without Jimmy healthy, that's the most likely option, and considering they're not trading Jimmy, they likely foresee a future where they get valuable pieces to put next to Steph, Dre, and Jimmy next season. In my opinion, this would be the wrong move for the Warriors. 2 seasons in a row, they've been hit with the injury bug to major stars who are older. Continuing to vie for positioning with the same team structure is only going to lead to further disappointment. Alternatively, the Warriors might also discover a dynamic between JK and Steph that could lead to wins if they manage to make the playoffs without Jimmy Butler. At this juncture, the Warriors would have to pivot to a more youthful roster and build a team with a new vision and a new head coach that could pair the two and possibly integrate Jimmy midway through next season for a final run. Draymond Green has already regressed severely this season and will likely get even worse for 2027, so a solid move would be to play him off the bench. I know a lot of voices want him traded, but he spent his entire career as a Warrior, and the front office is likely to honor that. Green has a player option for next season at $27 million, so all three of himself, Butler, and Curry are on the roster. It's no secret that there's a wait-and-see approach for Giannis, and if he becomes available this summer, the Warriors want to put a package together to get him next to Steph and Draymond if possible. While I think the idea is silly to wait around for Giannis while Steph Curry withers, if the Warriors focus on JK and Curry working alongside each other, get a rhythm, and find another reliable point-of-attack defender that can also shoot, they could be in a good position when Jimmy returns next season. While this is unlikely to happen under Steve, the assistant coaches are currently making their own individual moves as if Steve Kerr will not be here next season. This is a move the Warriors are clearly willing to make. It is crystal clear that Jonathan Kuminga has no interest in giving his best effort for Steve Kerr, and if he leaves Golden State, the franchise will be mocked for the next decade for getting rid of him to keep Steve. On the other hand, if the Warriors do decide to trade Kuminga at the deadline for a piece like MPJ and run it back next season with Steve Kerr, it is very likely they missed their window for a championship and will have another mediocre year riddled with injuries while being coached in a system that no longer applies by a coach who will not be told otherwise. Let me know what you guys think of the Warriors' options. Do they move on from Kerr or do they move on from JK? Lastly, what do you think of how Kuminga played in his return? Do you think he's worth keeping? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish.